Good evening, everyone. How are you? Great. I'm Carl Stokes, and I'm coming by this evening, obviously, to debate with my colleagues, all of whom are very fine people. I've known all of them for many years, several years, some of them. So, the president of the City Council is also the chairman of the Board of Estimates. The Board of Estimates is the place where every Wednesday almost, the City of Baltimore distributes tens of millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, to people who are not African American. And that's the same message I'm going to say to white audiences also. Tens of millions of dollars to people who are not African Americans. That means huge construction contracts to people who don't live in Baltimore City and don't hire people in Baltimore City. Tens of millions of dollars to vendors who don't live in Baltimore City, whose children don't go to Baltimore City, who don't hire people in Baltimore. Tens of millions of dollars to developers to develop the Gold Coast of the Inner Harbor, while the Outer Harbor of East and West Baltimore remains barren. President of the City Council chairs the Board of Estimates, sets the agenda for the Board of Estimates. That's the place also where they set aside the minority participation. Literally set aside. As chair of the Board of Estimates, I will work to change that whole dynamic. It is in black and white. It's not worth a damn. It's in black and white, and every Wednesday they say, black people, get behind us. It is in black and white. And every Wednesday, white contractors say, I can't find any qualified Negroes. Every fucking Wednesday, they say they can't find black people. It takes a black person who has the consciousness to say black people. That's who it goes to. That's it. Maynard Jackson, Marion Barry, Coleman Young, Harold Washington. They didn't need a committee. They didn't need legislation. They said, we're going to give business to black folk. They didn't need a committee. They didn't need legislation. They were proud enough and strong enough to say to their city and the people sitting there with them, we're going to take care of black folk who had been screwed over for all these years. That's right. And everybody in the room knew they had been screwed over, including the white folk. And the white folk didn't argue because they knew it to be a fact. And they just were hoping that they wouldn't get cut out from now on. And so I'm going to say black folk. Now, why in a city of a 65% majority city do we have, quote, minority set-asides? Who the hell are the minority? Come on. I'm good. Until we have economic parity for the black community, until we put the same amount of dollars in East Side, West Side, Sandtown, Gay Street, that we put on the Gold Coast, until we take care of the most vulnerable communities and stop referring to squeegee kids as hoodlums, people who are trying to take care of their family. Can you believe that? 12-year-old kids trying to take care of their families. And that's no bullshit. You know it's the truth. We are not taking the citizens' money and giving it back to the citizens. Instead, we're not collecting Ritz-Carlton, we're not collecting BGE, we're not collecting all of the other places until we put our money back into our black community. And there is commerce. I can't buy a shirt. I can't buy a pair of shoes in the neighborhood I live in. Hell, I can't even buy good food in the neighborhood I live in. Every man's son, for those of you who were around many, many, many years ago. I ran a healthcare organization. I also started with Edwin Johnson, two very successful charter schools in the city of Baltimore, 2 very successful charter schools. So I've been doing a lot when I'm not in City Hall. So those of us on the stage are not running for mayor this year. I'm the first guy who demanded audits of all of the city agencies in the city. I'm the guy who stood up 12 years ago and said we ought to be auditing the city of Baltimore, both financial and performance. I'm the guy who lost 8-7 in the city council because my colleagues said, we don't really want to see what's going on with the money. We don't want to see the corruption. We don't want everybody else to see the corruption. We're living in a corrupt city and an incompetent city. Now, after a couple of turns of being turned down, Jack Young and I worked together and we got another audit bill in. It was watered down. It wasn't as strong as the original bill, but we finally did get an audit bill passed. And so, yeah, I'm the guy who was there at the beginning of all of this. Thanks.